I'd like to use a comment I received a few months ago and a short clip from a video from the channel What I've Learned to illustrate a point. Vegans are not out to save the environment. The corresponding video was a reaction to a video by a vegan activist in which he reacted to a recent Got Milk ad. The vegan activist seemed to promote plant milks as an environmentally friendly alternative, and I took issue with that. Here's the criticism from the comment. The commenter basically agrees with the vegan activist and mentioned that they think I'm appealing to nature. I've been accused on more than one occasion of appealing to nature, when in fact that's not what I'm doing. I explained as follows. I basically give an example of a product we can get from an animal that occurs naturally as part of its ecosystem, which means it has a positive impact on the environment while it is alive, and that we don't necessarily have to waste resources in order for it to make the product we're going to receive from it because it happens naturally. In this clip from What I Have Learned, we see the same idea, this time with real meat versus lab-grown meat.
At first, I was really optimistic about lab meat. It made so much sense. Growing just a steak instead of a whole cow seemed to be way more efficient. But then I started looking into it, and it made less and less sense. To take cells from a cow or chicken and grow them quickly, they need to be put in a very expensive custom-made bioreactor, filled with a specially formulated liquid made with purified water, growth factors, purified amino acids, glucose, and salts. A cow just needs rainwater and grass. The facility and the bioreactor need to be totally sterile because a tiny amount of bacteria or virus could ruin the whole batch, wasting tons of money. A cow has an immune system, so it can just lay in the dirty grass outside. A huge challenge to growing cells quickly inside of a bioreactor is developing ways to efficiently deliver oxygen and nutrients to each cell, while removing waste products like ammonia, lactate, and CO2. A cow, on the other hand, handles all this really easily with lungs, blood vessels, and its liver. There's a lot more to this picture, but the point is it's very expensive to try and do what a cow, chicken, or pig does.
I do not consider feeding an animal as wasteful. I'm not sure who or what would. I do not consider an animal that exists as part of its ecosystem as dispensable or unnecessary. The thing we take from it that we turn into a product for humans also has a purpose. Wool, as in the example, keeps the sheep warm. Milk feeds the young of an animal. I'm still failing to see how there is any waste here. There is some kind of argument that when these animals produce actual waste, it's somehow bad for the environment. I'm sorry, but I already understand how they fit perfectly into their individual ecosystems. Even if it were true that there was a negative impact, the positive would still outweigh the negative.
You know? I don't know how you can graze or own any animal on the face of the earth that's any more low maintenance than a sheep. Particularly these sheep. Now there are some sheep out there that are really high maintenance, and you got to shear them, you got to worm them to keep them alive, you got to feed them grain or they get thin. You know, those are pampered sheep.
If we take a material or food that is partially man-made, we are basically inventing something that doesn't already exist and likely that we don't need. We are putting time and energy into the production of an extraneous product, especially in the case of plant milks. If it is argued that animal milk that is not human milk is not suitable for babies and not necessary for children or adults, then that's fine. Again, these animals are part of their natural ecosystem. They can naturally have offspring, and their children can drink their milk. Again, there's no waste here. It's a perfectly efficient and effective cycle. Oat milk, on the other hand, does not exist in nature. It is a product humans have to create. That means we have to waste time and energy and resources producing something that does not yet exist. If the argument is that we don't need milk, then it should be universal that we don't need milk. In what universe would this not include soy, oat, and almond milks? If you have a product we don't need and we use anything to produce it, it is wasteful. On top of that, oats and almond trees, for example, are monocrops. They are generally bad for the environment when humans grow them. If you have naturally occurring oats, and there are some animals that naturally eat them, then that's fine. But humans shouldn't be wasting their time, energy, and resources growing things they don't need. If a vegan argues that it's not worth it to grow oats or soy to feed cows. It's not worth it to grow them to feed humans either. It's not our natural food. It's just some extra stuff that is incredibly damaging to the environment when grown as a monocrop, and which slowly poisons the animal that feeds on it. A vegan may argue that cow's milk is bad for people because of the saturated fat content, while completely ignoring the fact that there is no conclusive data backing up their claims that saturated fat is bad for humans, as well as the fact that some plant milks are made with seed oils. Seed oils, as a consumable product, are not necessarily naturally occurring. It is a substance that requires extraction by mechanical means. Again, humans have to waste time, money, energy, and other resources producing something we don't need. Also, seed oils are poison, and so then are the milks they are made with.
And according to them, it's even better than real milk, when in reality, oats plus water alone tastes horrible. So to get commercial oat milk to taste as good as it does, these companies jam a ton of seed oils and chemicals into it, like dipotassium phosphate, a food additive that has been linked to kidney disease and early death, rapeseed oil, aka canola oil, which is a seed oil. And then there's maltose, a sugar whose glycemic load is double that of white sugar. In fact, one serving of oat milk has the same blood sugar effect as a can of Coke. And gram for gram, oat milk has the same amount of seed oils as French fries. Wow, now that sounds healthy.
The icing on the cake is that we have to fortify these foods. Some vegans may argue that we fortify our meat and dairy too. Even if that were true, there's a difference between this meat and dairy used to be perfectly nutritious, but because of poor human farming practices, they are not as nutritious as they used to be. And this plant naturally has nutritional deficits, and in order to make it a proper replacement for dairy, for example, it has always needed to be and will continue to need to be fortified. If we got our farming practices back to what they used to be, many of the complaints vegans have would completely go away. The real problem, as I mentioned in the original video, is overpopulation. There are too many mouths to feed, and we, especially in the West, eat to extremes. The problem is not cows. The problem is not sheep. The problem isn't the fat or the milk or the wool their bodies produce. The problem is overconsumption and overpopulation.